This video will introduce and explain the concept of market equilibrium, which is a very important concept in microeconomics, and the role of the price mechanism. Now, to illustrate the concept of equilibrium, let's have a look at, for example, the market for frozen pizzas. Assume S represents the supply curve for frozen pizzas. This is the quantity of frozen pizzas that producers are willing and able to sell at the different prices over a certain period of time. And assume that D represents the demand curve. This is the curve showing the quantity of frozen pizzas that buyers are willing and able to buy at those different prices. Now, where the demand and the supply curve intersect, this will determine the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Now, the equilibrium price is the market clearing price. At this price, the market is stable. There is no shortage of frozen pizzas and no surplus. The market will remain in equilibrium. This equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity will remain the same unless there is an outside disturbance. By outside disturbance, we mean any change in any of the non-price determinants of the demand or supply of frozen pizzas. So, those mysterious forces of demand and supply, they are often referred to as the price mechanism. These are the forces that move markets into equilibrium. It's important to remember that the price mechanism is a self-righting or self-correcting mechanism. If there's any situation of excess supply or excess demand, the market will eliminate this excess supply or this excess demand by itself. It will correct any surplus or shortage by itself. In a free market without any outside intervention, prices have two main functions. First of all, prices have a signaling function. They signal to producers whether they need to produce more or less of that product. At the same time, prices have an incentive function. They give producers an incentive to produce more or less, and they give consumers an incentive to consume more or less. So basically, in that sense, prices help in the reallocation of resources. Whenever the price changes in a free market without any government intervention, this results in a reallocation of resources. Now, if producers set their prices above the equilibrium price, this will result in excess supply. It will result in a surplus of that product. And this will exert a downward pressure on price. So price will return back to equilibrium. And the opposite is true. If the producers set a price that's below equilibrium, there will be a case of excess demand. There will be a shortage. This exerts an upward pressure on the price, and the price will return back to equilibrium. And this is how the price mechanism is self-righting or self-correcting. Think of equilibrium as gravity. The conditions in the market will always gravitate. If left to move freely, they will always gravitate towards equilibrium. So let's see how those mysterious forces of demand and supply, or how the price mechanism works and how it is a self-correcting mechanism. Assume, for example, we're looking at the market for frozen pizzas. And for example, there is an increase in demand. Let's see what happens when there's an increase in demand. Assume the market starts off at equilibrium. The PE is the equilibrium price. QE is the original equilibrium quantity. So the original equilibrium is the intersection of S and D right here where I'm circling. So let's assume, for example, incomes rise. We know that when incomes rise, that's one of the non-price determinants of demand. This will cause a shift of the demand curve from D to D1. So demand has increased. Now, price takes a while to adjust. So for a while, the price will remain the same, but because there has been an increase in demand, suddenly the quantity demanded will be greater than the quantity supplied. There will be a shortage or an excess demand in the market because QED, this is the new quantity demanded after the demand curve has shifted, and QE is the quantity supplied that's being produced by producers. So for a while, there will be an excess demand. And we know, we've mentioned earlier, that whenever there's excess demand or a shortage, this will exert an upward pressure on the price. This upward pressure on price due to the shortage or the excess demand will cause the price of frozen pizzas to slowly rise until we reach a new equilibrium, which is the intersection of the new demand curve, D1, and the supply curve, S. So this is the new equilibrium that I'm circling right here. Price will rise until it reaches the new equilibrium from PE to PE1, and the quantity will also increase until it reaches the new equilibrium quantity from QE to QE1. So QE1 is the new equilibrium quantity, PE1 is the new equilibrium price. At this point, the market reaches equilibrium again. So the excess demand or the shortage that existed in the market, because it's self-writing, because it's self-correcting, it eliminated that shortage by slowly raising the price. When the price rose slowly, that sent a signal to producers that there is a shortage, and it also gave them an incentive to produce more. At the same time, it gave consumers an incentive to consume a little less until, again, the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied met at the new equilibrium point. And this is how the price mechanism is self-correcting. So what about a situation where there's an increase in supply? So say, for example, a different example, we're in the same market, the market for frozen pizzas. Say something happens that lowers the costs of producing frozen pizzas. Now we know whenever the costs of production fall, supply will increase. Again, price takes some time to adjust. Until price adjusts, QE will be the quantity demanded that the consumers are demanding, but the new quantity supplied now is QES because the supply curve has shifted to the right due to the fall in costs of production. Now there's a situation of excess supply. There's a surplus of frozen pizzas in the market, and this exerts a downward pressure on the price. This downward pressure on the price will cause the price to gradually fall. When the price gradually falls, this sends producers a signal that there is a surplus in the market, and it also gives them an incentive to produce less. At the same time, the gradual fall in price will give consumers an incentive to consume more until the market reaches a new equilibrium. So equilibrium price drops from PE to PE1, and the equilibrium quantity increases from QE to QE1. And we reach a new equilibrium point, which is the intersection of D and the new supply curve S1. Once again, the market has corrected this surplus or this excess supply by itself through movements in price. Let's look at a situation where there is a decrease in demand. Assume the prices of fresh pizzas have fallen. So now fresh pizzas are cheaper. This will cause a lot of people to switch from frozen pizzas to fresh pizzas. So naturally, the demand for frozen pizzas will decrease. The demand curve will shift to the left from D to D1. Now, because price takes some time to adjust, for a temporary period of time, there will be excess supply. There will be a surplus in the market. QES will be the quantity that is demanded, but QE will be the quantity supplied at that equilibrium price PE. Now, whenever there's excess supply or whenever there's a surplus, this exerts a downward pressure on the price. This downward pressure on the price due to the excess supply will cause the equilibrium price to gradually drop until we reach a new equilibrium. So PE will fall to PE1 and QE will fall to QE1. So we've moved to a new equilibrium point, which is the intersection of the new demand curve D1 and the supply curve S. And this is all because there has been a decrease in demand. Now, what about the situation where there's a decrease in supply? Assume, for example, the government has decided to impose an indirect tax on the producers of frozen pizzas. This decreases supply, and the supply curve will shift to the left from S to S1. Again, because price takes a while to adjust, there will be a period where there will be excess demand in the market. QED will be the new quantity supplied, but QE will be the quantity demanded because the conditions of demand haven't changed. Now, whenever there's excess demand, whenever there's a shortage, this exerts an upward pressure on the price. This upward pressure on the price will cause the equilibrium price to slowly rise. When prices rise, this sends a signal to producers that there is excess demand for the product. It gives them an incentive to produce more. At the same time, it gives consumers an incentive to consume less. So the price will gradually rise until we reach a new equilibrium from PE to PE1 and a new equilibrium quantity from QE to QE1. So the new equilibrium will be the intersection of the new supply curve S1 and the demand curve. So we've seen different examples of how the market, when it's left to operate freely without any outside intervention, will correct any shortages or surpluses, any excess demand or excess supply by changing the price. We've also seen that price changes basically act as a signal, and they act as an incentive so that producers or consumers will adjust their quantity supplied or their quantity demanded until the market reaches a new equilibrium again. And this is how the price mechanism is self-writing or self-correcting.